Throughout all eternity, it will still be left up to those redeemed people to make their own choices and their own decisions. Now you might say, well, Brother Joe, you know, that's a dangerous thing for God to take people to heaven who might choose to disobey Him again. Sin comes into this world again, and we have to go through another long 6,000-year siege of this suffering and pain and death. Well, now, friends, that will never happen. We know that. That affliction will not rise the second time, so there won't be any more choices by people to disobey God. Well, you say, how can God know that? How can He trust eternal life? And what about the angels? You know, how are they going to know that we'll not subject the universe to the same long of death as we have before by transgression? Well, now, friends, God will know because of what we are now. And now, you see, this is the testing place. This is where we prove to God, my friends, that we can be loyal to Him, that we can choose to obey Him under any circumstance whatsoever. And I'll tell you, God will never take anybody to heaven who would not rather die than sin. Now, you mark that down. We're going to be talking more about that in our studies. God will take nobody to heaven who would not choose to die before he would be disloyal and disobedient. Now, friends, the program of Satan has always been to make man disobey, to make man sin. See, Satan knows that sin will never go to heaven. Go through the gates of the city. Revelation 21:27 says, nothing that defileth will go through the gates of that city. And sin is the only thing that defiles as far as God is concerned. And as I mentioned the other day, you know, the devil knew and understood a principle long before the Apostle Paul ever wrote it down in his epistle. Let's turn to Romans 6 now for our first text. In Romans 6, verse 16, here is a tremendous principle that's long ago, even before the foundations of the world were laid. Know ye not, Paul writes, that to whom thou servants to obey, his servants ye are to whom ye obey, whether of sin unto death or of obedience unto righteousness. Now, powers that whoever we obey, we become the servant of that power. So if we obey God, we're a servant of God. If we obey sin, we're a servant of sin. If we obey Satan, we're a servant of Satan. And so you see, friends, how very important this business of obedience is. And the devil knows this. Now, if he can make you keep on sinning, he can keep you out of heaven. That will be an effective way to keep you from ever going to heaven. So what do you think Satan is going to do? He's going to focus the people of this earth to make them sin and break God's law and thereby demonstrate disloyalty to Him. And in every generation has been creating conditions to make men sin. He has been devising strategies to make people disobey God. And he's gone about it in various ways. And you know what he's done? In the book of Revelation, with the whole program of attacking God's people and causing them to sin, he has distilled it down into one mighty issue of disobedience. And it's the issue, as we've discovered, of the mark of the beast and the seal of God. In other words, it's going to concern the law of God. It's going to concern keeping His commandments. And so there in the book story outline, we have the two sides represented in the great controversy. Those who follow God and keep His commandments and obey all of His commandments, whether it's convenient or not. And then those who will choose to follow some pagan counterfeits and some pagan substitutes rather than to obey God at some distance to themselves. And so that is the issue we find. Now, friends, the devil doesn't care why you disobey as long as you do it. I mean, you can think of the most religious reason that you want to for disobeying God. And that will make Satan very happy indeed. And I can tell you right now, according to what I've studied in the Bible and in history, I have found, friends, that some of the most religious people have been the most disobedient people. Now notice I said religious, not spiritual. And this has always been true. Religious people, I don't understand how that could be. Why would religious people be disobedient to God? Well, friends, Jesus said Himself, in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines and commandments of men. Now, He talked about people who were worshiping Him. He was talking about people in churches. And He said they're worshiping me in vain because instead of keeping my commandments, they're bringing in the traditions of men and the commandments of men. Now, here's another good question. Who is it that is committing the most open and flagrant disobedience to God's holy law today? The most wicked